Hi, everybody, and welcome again to the Innovation Cafe. Today, I'm not going to be the host because we have the best host in the world here with us. It's Steph. Steph, over to you. I promised to do this, so feel free to introduce the Innovation Cafe yourself and Emma and Mary. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Hugo. Thank you for having us. Okay, so why are we all here? So Innovation Cafe, everyone knows, there's a big global community of kind of change makers, over 2,000. And first of all, I think we're your first ever all-female panel, aren't we, Hugo? Yeah, okay.
It's the first one. It's the first one. Okay, so this is really, really exciting, and I'm sure it's going to be the best one as well. So,
I think we're also the first neurodiverse majority panel as well. So that's actually quite an interesting one. I want to pick up on that later. The two women that have joined this evening, who we're going to hear from, they and I and many, many other people hold them in incredibly high esteem. We have media advertising czar, Mary Keane-Dawson. She's group CEO of Takumi. She's government advisor. She has taken care of me personally, mentored me for like a decade. Thank you, Mary. But also we have Emma Sayle, founder of Network's Sister, and Sister Network has done phenomenal things already. And then we also have, she launched the world-renowned Killing Kittens. So everyone will know her for that infamy. But we're here to discuss how challenging the status quo and the old rules and ways of doing things actually leads to true innovation and ingenuity, and why challenging, and challenging that status quo is more important now than ever before, actually. So, Mary, I'd love you to kick off and introduce yourself, and then Emma, I hope, will be freed up because we're running a little bit behind with Emma. But yeah, Mary, do you want to give a little bit of an intro about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Mary Keane-Dawson. I am Group CEO of Takumi, which is one of the world's largest influencer marketing and technology businesses. I've been in advertising, media and marketing for just 35 years now, starting off in Fleet Street when there were still presses printing newspapers in the basement of the building, and you'd feel the raw and you'd hear the hot metal slamming back in the day. So you can imagine I've seen quite a lot of disruption and innovation in those 35 years, everything from the dawn of the internet and desktop publishing, which revolutionized the world of print. And then we saw search come from nowhere, and the birth of an algorithm-driven world, to ad tech and martech and fintech, and now we're seeing the dawn of create tech, which is driving this human creativity and at the intersection with technology, and that's very much the business that I am in, with the creator and the creator economy. So that's me. I'm a mum. I've got two grown-up sons, both of whom work in strategy, and I learn more from talking to them and their children than I do often from speaking with clients, interestingly enough. We at Takumi, we work with some of the world's biggest brands, including Unilever, P&G, NatWest, Regions Bank, American Express, etc., etc., etc. And it's very interesting how the corporate world is reacting at the moment to this new period in history, where we're seeing the rise of the empowered consumer in particular. So I've got, as you can probably tell, I've got some strong opinions, but I'm very, very delighted to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me. So I believe the wonderful Emma Sayle now is online, so I'm going to hand back to you, Steph.
Emma. So I hope everything's also.
Sorry.
No. It's real life, isn't it? And it's also multitasking. So yeah, just give us a little précis about your background, and then we'll jump into kind of the areas that we're covering.
Okay, so I'll start with mum of 3 under 6, hence why I've just slid into a secret hiding space at the back of our garden, while juggling the others with a husband who got home like an hour later than he told me he was going to get. But hey, that's like the modern world, isn't it, of the juggle. So I founded a company called Killing Kittens 16 years ago, basically on the back of just being angry. I grew up in the Middle East whilst being at all girls boarding school, and just felt it was very unbalanced the way the world was towards women, and learning at school that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And that's kind of how I thought to start with, and the world was equal. And then going home to sort of Middle Eastern background, and also a very narcissistic kind of controlling father, and kind of realizing that actually it wasn't, and the way the world was to do with women just was very unbalanced. And I've always been, since birth, that person that's questioned the narrative and questioned everything. It's driven my parents up the wall, and I only got diagnosed in my 30s with ADHD, which kind of explains a lot. And I call it my superpower, and I wouldn't have it any other way of not knowing. That I'm glad that it took me into my 30s to realize, because otherwise you just get labels and get told that there's something wrong with you. So whereas I just went 3,000 miles per hour, questioning, and I still do that. And it's sort of everything to me, especially, you know, with the Killing Kittens, and that's women's sexuality, and creating a safe space for women to explore their sexuality and not be judged and questioned, through to Sister, which we launched 2 years ago, which is sort of a community for professional women, to talk about anything and find. I don't really like the mentor thing, because I think that's quite black and white. I have like mentor mentee. I think everyone can learn everything from anyone at any stage. I can learn a lot from an 18-year-old right now, especially in social media or the digital world or the tech world. So we kind of, it's more sort of championing, getting behind other women as women to help them out, rather than the kind of the backstabbing world that has very much been the women's world in the professional world for so many years, of now actually there's enough for everyone, so how about we help each other. So we kind of say everything we do is empowering women from the bedroom to the boardroom and everything in between, and that it's all kind of, it's all linked. And we're now considered a tech business. We're just starting a Series A raise for it. So yeah, so I'm kind of in hustle mode at the moment. Hustle mode and running around juggle mode. It's just, yeah,
well, okay,
welcome to
so
my life.
hustle mode and juggle mode are brilliant. And actually Mary said, just before you came on, said there's a very similar thing. She learns more from her kids and her grandkids than she does from, you know, any of her clients. Well, maybe not any of them, but some of her clients. So I wanted to jump in and talk about the perks and pitfalls of challenging. Okay, and both of you have had really interesting careers. So I'd love you to tell us a bit more about your failures and successes when you've done this, when you challenge people. So you know, Mary, do you want to kick off with that one? Because there's, so you know, I know what you some of the things you've done. Steak, for example, huge success. You really challenged things there. And then maybe with truth, it was too early. People didn't want to find out the truth, did they? So, you know,
I'm still not sure that they want to know the truth. If you don't know the truth, I think that that's actually one of the biggest challenges being a woman in business. To be frank, because I think that we hold in very high regard honesty and transparency, and that's not necessarily always the way that companies and organizations want to play, if you know what I mean. I mean, there's an artistry to the machinations of the magic, you know, you know, what was the great Julie Burchill quote, life's rich tapestry which we weave. You know, I mean, that's the point, you know. And in corporate life there's an awful lot of double accounting and, you know, things that kind of like, we made a mistake, but let's not talk about it, because let's not put that in the center of the conversation. And of course that actually is the big handbrake to innovation, frankly, because unless you know that there's been a mishap and you talk about it and you do so openly, you don't get the opportunity to address it, work out what the solution needs to look like, and then, you know, refresh and iterate and build. And so I think that you mentioned two very important moments in my life. I mean, first of all, when I first took on Steak, which at the time was one of a handful of paid for search businesses in the UK and in fact globally at the time. And literally right place, right time with the right proposition. Everybody thought search was just the most boring thing that had ever existed. Everyone advertising was turning their nose up at it. It was like, oh my God, classified online, what on earth, darling? Nobody cared. I mean, and search killed publishing basically. I mean, that's the truth. And I can remember going into a former company that I'd been started early in my career, Redwood, and I'd been asked by the board to come and do a presentation on search. And I remember I went in, and all of the people who were there had been there when I left, like 15, 20 years earlier, and they were horrified by what I was telling them about this powerful new, search engine that was online that could, educate people, could show them different places, could take them. And I mean, so it was a really interesting period, and I think woke me up to an awful lot. And we sold that company to Denstu, and the founders, fantastic bunch of guys. And I wish them all the greatest of success, Julian Walker, Ollie Bishop, and the third one's name's got out of my head, but never mind. And Duncan Parry, what am I talking about? Fantastic guy. And then, truth, which was something was born out of my experience of the programmatic world and performance in particular, was about trying to turn a spotlight on the ad tax economics of programmatic. And, interestingly, in that experience, I got wrapped up in a whole bunch of stuff to do with blockchain, and which was, like really interesting and fascinating and all the rest of it. But it was also very interesting to see how people did not want to actually look at blockchain properly. They wanted to believe in blockchain, right? But they did not want to address the latency issues. They didn't want to address the, all of that. There are really massive challenges with blockchain technologies and with the whole area of cryptocurrencies. It doesn't mean that they're not going to work. But unless you can have a critical conversation about these things, you don't move on. And I found that very, very frustrating, because people have drunk I have to say, a lot of very smart and talented young men were drinking the Kool-Aid, didn't want to hear, that it might not work out. So I felt that, and I still do, I'm very proud of Truth. I really, really am. But it was definitely timing. It was not the right time. And I think now you're seeing the emergence of some extremely exciting blockchain technologies, but not necessarily, if you can't, the speed of ad tech is, billions of impressions in literally nanoseconds, and blockchain isn't there yet. So that's my 10 cents on those two adventures that I went on.
Well, no, that's a fantastic take on it, and I think I couldn't agree with you more. And Hugo, you've experienced this firsthand, and Emma, I suppose you did as well with Killing Kittens, almost being too early for full adoption, and then having to make a choice to either realize it was too early or push the agenda, maybe as Emma, as you kind of had to change people's opinions and make them realize and see something different. So going back to the question, Emma, perks and pitfalls, what's happened where you've challenged things? Give us an example of something that's been a success and something that's maybe failed.
Do you know what, it's a weird one, because it's not so black and white. And I think because I'm still in kind of in the arena fighting everyday mode, it's hard to take that step back and kind of look at, even though it's been 16 years, to look back at when what's gone on in the journey and actually how far it's come. And every so often, actually, it's something I make myself do, is like go for a long walk and actually take a day out and just really look and remember sort of how it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and just sort of how society was. And when I look back 16 years ago and the abuse that, I get a lot less abuse now than I did then. But I think it's sort of, so that, I think if you, if you go early, it's that stick or twist. It's that if you have to, it's, I play poker and I play chess, and it's that, everything to me is the checkmate. And okay, if you have your eyes on that checkmate, then you don't get caught up in their little pawn moves. that's very easy when they're right in front of your face every single day. You go, well, actually, tomorrow's a new day. And actually, I always had that. I called it like I loved history and like Stalin's like 5-year plans. And I always had these 5-year plans that I saw the bigger picture, what I wanted to be in 5 years, and visualized that, and kept, I did sports science as a degree, which sounds completely irrelevant, but the big part of that, which I love, was the sports psychology and the visualization, which is massive. And I think a lot of business lessons can be learned if you're looking at through sport. And there's some really good books out there of the psychology of sport and the lessons you can learn through sport. And I'm digressing, aren't I? That's what happens when you're in my brain. You go into so I think it's that the pitfall. It was sort of, my team on Slack is called Gladiators. It's what I've always called that team, and the team's got bigger and bigger, but it's always been Gladiators, because it's like this is a battle, and it's, and every day's a fight. But when you feel every bone in your body is you're trying to achieve something, and it can change and it needs to change, it's sort of, you stop taking it personally. It's not about me. It's like, I'm just this little messenger, basically, and this thing that you can abuse it all you want, but it's a much bigger entity. And it's sort of, I just say, if you want to change the world and actually really change something that you're really pissed off with, then you take it, because it's not about me, and it's not an ego. It's kind of, this is a much bigger picture. And when you're fighting for all women, and then suddenly it opens up and you go global, like, well, it's like, actually suddenly, and you bring in the tech and you bring in the digital, it's like, well, actually, this is fighting for all women in the world. And anyone that thinks they can own their sexuality and be who they want to be, suddenly you're like, right, I'm fighting for everyone in the world. So it's got nothing to do with me anymore. So yeah.
So that makes perfect sense in the sense of the next question we're going to, which is, why asking new questions is the key to the long-term problems. So do you think when you started asking those questions, when you were really frustrated, when you had those, like the home environment, school environment, being, in a cultural environment that was this kind of long-standing, almost like a rule, everything was a set of rules, right, and pigeonholes, what were the questions that you started asking yourself about how you could change it? Or was it maybe not questions? Was it feelings? Was it, we'll get onto the ADHD thing in a minute, because I think that obviously and it's such a derogatory, I find it slightly derogatory when you say neurotypical and neurodiverse, because, one seems to kind of be playing things down a bit. But do you think that may have played into the fact that, when you're asking those questions, your questions were automatically different?
Yeah, and I think you come, because you ask the questions and you ask them quickly, so you process it really quickly, you're then on to the next question. So actually you're able to process a lot of information in a very short space of time that gives you a bigger picture, when actually a lot of people are just still focusing on one thing. And it's like I've learned personally, it's, sometimes I get frustrated, because I've got to the answer really quickly in my head, and I'm like, why hasn't anyone else? And I do it with my husband. I've got way better with my husband of actually not saying anything, biting my tongue and letting him, and sure enough, he'll come around to it. Even if it's like a few days later, and suddenly it'll be his idea. And I'm like, that's an amazing idea. And Mom used to say to me, when I was little, she said, if you want something from your father, you've got to find a way of making it be his idea. So I think you just get, I'd find ways of, even though I'd processed it, letting other people come up with the
and
idea.
then they catch up to that, the way you've asked the questions. So Mary, you made a comment earlier about clients and learning more from your kids and your grandkids. Now, one of the things you might often see, and we've seen this together, people come to you with a question or a brief, and it's the wrong question. Because of our experience, we intuitively know that they are asking the wrong question. And
well, not necessarily just intuitively. I mean,
we're like, guys, you're asking the wrong question, and it particularly for women. I know that everyone's going to go, oh, really? But no, particularly for women, when you're questioning maybe a very established brand or a very established client, and you kind of push back. It's taken a lot longer for women to maybe have that position of authority that where they can do that. Now, I question. Yeah, no. That's a generalization. I don't think that's ever been the case for you, and I don't think it's ever been the case for Emma, and it's certainly never been the case for me, which has meant that I've pissed off so many people. But Mary, I want to know, like, when you've had people coming to you asking questions, or they think they've got the right, what have you done to guide them towards the right questions and to change their frame of thinking?
I told them the truth. I mean, it was just like, that as simple as that. Like, look, you're off. I mean, I can tell you now, this is an absolutely true story. One day I was in my office in Islington. I was about 25 years old. I was a new business development director for a company called BLA, which was a contract publishing company. It was a one-man empty washing up liquid bottle, piece of sticky black plastic, and a coat hanger. And I had done a mailing to all of the automotive sector, and I got a phone call from a guy called Christian Taylor, and he said, "Hey, I just got your letter." And we're talking to Redwood, who I had worked for previously, and he said, "And we were looking for a magazine idea that we can put into every single car that we sell at Ford." Ford, I said. He said, "Yes, that's right. I'm direct marketing manager of Ford." And I said, "Why would you do that?" And he said, "Well, it's like a gift, like la la la." And I was like, no, you misunderstand, right? You're asking the wrong question. You need to engage with these people and get them to talk back to you. You need to have a conversation. So what you really need is you need some interaction. Anyway, within 1 year, okay, I was sitting on what they call the VLC, the Vehicle Launch Committee of Ford of Britain for car, which is that little car that they launched, the A-Class, first A-Class car that they ever had. And I was 26 years old, and I was the very first woman to get onto those. Now, I'm not boasting about anything here, right? I'm just telling you that, timing is really important, but also just believing really passionately and knowing what you're talking about. And I can remember Serene McAllister, who was the chairman of Ford at the time. Sorry? Sorry, someone was talking there. And he said to me, "We need women on our vehicle launch committees because we don't have any women talking to us about what it's like to be a Ford customer." And this was at the moment when, like to Emma's point, we went to schools where we thought we knew we could do anything, right? And then when we got into the real world, suddenly all these blokes were telling us to shut the fuck up. Excuse my French, sorry. And not, who the hell are you? What does your opinion matter?
Or you're
and
too opinionated.
Like you're too opinionated. And I was like, my opinion matters because I'm here to tell you, right, that women do not wish to be treated in this way, and we don't need to. We have this. We have views. We have power, and we're going to have a lot more money in the future. So it does work if you are you, but you have to be passionate. You have to believe, and you also have to have empirical evidence, which is why I said to you about the intuitive thing.
Yeah.
You've actually got to be able to pull together a really strong strategy that is based on, has got some foundation to it. And I think what is wonderful about Emma, and I declare now that I'm one of her biggest admirers, is the fact that she does get there much quicker than anybody else does in the room, and that is because she's got this superpower of ADHD. But the other thing is that she knows her facts, and she makes sure she knows her facts before she starts talking to the room or voicing an opinion. And that's, I think that's one of the greatest powers of being a female, because we take what we say very seriously and we deliver what we promise. Okay, because that bit we care deeply about. So I'm going to shut up now.
No, that is perfect, because it takes us. So efficiency or creativity, what's more important, the process, or is it actually the ideas that we come up with? And I think what you've hit on is actually it's both. Because Emma, what you're saying is you're basically almost like a little bubble in your head. I'm going to go up like a hot air balloon. If I were to look down in your head, and I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD too, funnily enough, and but when you look down from that little hot air balloon, and then you see, I can imagine your brain simultaneously running about 30, 40, 50 routes that could happen from one question. And because your brain's running them all at the same time, you'll probably pick out the 5 top options, ask them, and then you give them to everyone else, and then they probably make their choices. And you can do that at lightning speed. And what that does is that elevates people to a place where they have better opportunities to do great things. So, you know, when you come up with ideas, and I know this happens with both of you, when you come up with ideas, you know, where does that inspiration come from? And then how do you make sure that you fulfill on them? And is it a case of making sure that it's the right promises to clients or the right promises to the people you're working with? Emma, you're going through a Series A raise right now. So, you know, you come up with all the ideas to get it there, but what's that process going to be afterwards? You know, Mary, when you have kind of creative opportunities with clients, you know, how do you make sure that that becomes a reality, and also everyone gets their dreams come true from a client perspective at the end of it?
I'm going to let Emma answer, because I've just hogged the screen as usual. Let her go ahead.
Do you know what? I think for me, it's when I kind of realize, when you become more self-aware and when you become more aware of your strengths and your weaknesses, but also what you don't give a shit about, you know what I mean? And actually, I'm not interested in doing stuff. You can pretend to be interested in loads of stuff, but I was doing all the accounts, I was doing everything. And then actually, when you suddenly go, actually, I'm doing it, but I don't want to be doing it. And I said, anyone launching their own business is actually over 90% of the time you spend doing stuff that you didn't want to do. And that's not why you launched business in the first place. So for me, it was when I got other people involved who really knew their shit in certain areas, and I realized, especially digital and tech, and now I've got an amazing team, and it's been so liberating. And Mary's met my COO and partner in crime, and we couldn't be more polar opposites, like complete and utter opposites in the way we operate. But he is so detailed and tech and strategy, and the same with sister, the other Emma who sort of manages sister, is so good with detail. And she actually has realized as well, she beat herself up because she's not creative and doesn't come up with ideas, and she beat herself up that she felt really boring because she doesn't do ideas, but she's realized actually she's really good at putting the ideas. And so I now can go even faster and have these ideas and throw them up in the air, and know there's an amazing team behind me who catch me. And every time I sit in the office, it's a standing joke, and I go, I've got this idea, and everyone goes, oh no, what now? There's a team there, and I don't care if they run with it or don't run with it. And if they have a discussion and go, well, no, a bit risky or a bit out there, it's not going to happen, and we've done the figures, and actually it's not going to work, or it's not the right time to do it, I don't get offended. I don't mind. So actually, I can, having got that team in place now, I can go much faster and come up with loads of different ones, and have these people who will actually go through it and put it all into figures and the potential outcomes, and actually that will work, and that won't work. But it's sort of, you know, they've always had ideas, and Mum brought one up at our wedding speech, was still think it will work. It was either called Mini Bites or Bite Size, and it was like a catering company with midgets, dwarfs, as the waiters, different headwear, different themes. Like you could have a Mexican theme, and you have big sombreros, and you have the dips in the middle and the Doritos around the outside, and they're at parties and things. But you're allowed to do that. There are agencies. This isn't being, and it was called Bite Size or Mini Bites. And she told me, and I had that when I was about 25. She went too far, so I stuck with the orgies. But there's always things in my head going, what about that? What about that? You know, so actually I have a really amazing team who are really good on the detail, and actually they're putting it together and actually going, no, too far. that's the key.
Mary, how about you? I love that though. I love that. Too far, Emma. Reel it back.
Yeah, too far.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I mean, none of that surprises me. And by the way, I'm not planning on going to the doctors anytime soon to get diagnosed, but I'm probably on the spectrum too. So yeah,
yeah, probably.
I think I think that. Wow, I mean, how do you follow that? Really, I think for me, I've always seen myself as a creative catalyst, and being a catalyst has really been my, if I was going to say, my kind of like special trick, making things happen, actually actioning something and making it real and making it commercially successful. And I think that, I've been in this mixed up world of technology and creative services and media for, the majority of my career. And that, I think, has, led me to have some incredibly interesting conversations with clients. And I absolutely have to say, most clients and most brand leaders are, the board level are looking for innovation all the time. They know that they've got to keep their business fresh and keep it really like relevant. And I think that those people are the people you want to be working with, and certainly that I want to be working with. I don't sit very comfortably in a corporate structure, as you'll see from my CV. My stints at WPP. I tried, guys. I really tried, but the toxicity levels, and the mediocrity in a lot of these places is just unbelievable. And really, when you're talking about the client roster that I've worked with, and I've had the great privilege of working with everyone from American Express through to American Airlines and a million others in between. It's that experience that I think has made my life and my career so interesting and unique, and the challenges that they face. Particularly given what's happening in the world, whether it's from a technological perspective, but also, as Emma has absolutely been instrumental in showing us, society is changing, right? And I know there's a lot of big people out there who don't want that to happen, okay? But it is happening, and I'm part of the movement for change, and I'm absolutely part of the championing the democratization of creativity, championing the democratization of your sexuality, and exploring who you really are and your identity. And I want a world where people can feel free to be who they be themselves. I'm going to start singing a song in a minute.
Mary, actually, I heard something the other day that I think you'll really like, and it was from one of the senior people at the European Innovation part of Accenture, and he said people like change, they don't like transition.
Correct.
There's I love, one of my favorite sayings is, for the weather to change, the winds must blow. And so whenever I have friends who are like, I'm like, it's got to blow. You've got to let the winds blow. You know what I mean? You have the rainbow, the rain, you have the rainbow and the sun. It kind of, you've got to have that. Let it blow. Yeah.
Okay, so this is
it doesn't always go the right way. I mean, we both, all three of us have run businesses, right? And we've all led businesses. And you've got to have really excellent people around you, and that they are partners, not employees. I think that's really important. And you have to trust them to be able to, as Emma said, edit your ideas and whatever, but also allow you to be, allow you to support them, and they support you, and I mean, I've raised a lot of money in my career, and I think that that's quite an unusual set of experiences for women, because normally we're the kind of like eye candy, or whatever you want to call it, and then the guys get down and do the deal. And makes my perspective, I think, pretty unusual, because I don't leave it to the I need finance people around me who really understand and want to deliver on the vision, and that they play their part, right? But we do it together, and we do this as a team. And I think that's a big difference in terms of being a female entrepreneur and leader. You've got to be really able to take the rough with the smooth as well. You get rejected and not let it take it personally, because again, to the wonderful Ms. Sayle's point, you get trolled, you get bitched about, people, other women say things about you, which is always really weird, and I think I personally will confront women who do that, and I pull it out all the time, and men as well. But that might make me unpopular with some certain individuals in leadership positions in advertising agencies, but we'll leave it there.
Well, do you know what, to that point, so it took me a long time to learn that culture, and also it took me a long time to unlearn it. So at the beginning of my career, and maybe not even the beginning, it just took me a long time to realize that I didn't have to behave like that too. I didn't have to behave that way to play the game. And it felt wrong. It always felt wrong.
But it was what everyone else was doing.
Exactly. You learn by example. And then sometimes you just get to a point when you just say, enough. I've had enough of this. I'm just going to do it my way now. And that takes some serious guts. But also, you've got to get to the point where you're confident enough to ruffle people's feathers. And I think to your point of having the right people around you. So at the moment, I'm going through my raise. for an eco brand that's brand new. And it is something that's new. You know, there are going to be question marks around whether or not people believe in it, but the idea is fundamentally fantastic. But what I've done this time that's been very different to previous environments is I've gone to people like you, Mary, who I trust implicitly. I said, okay, can you please advise someone who is a suitable FD, who can come in and help me with the business modeling, who gets the way my brain works, who's going to understand, take that magic and turn it into numbers on an Excel spreadsheet, right, and make it sing for people at VC. And that's, Emma, what you were saying about the team that you've got around you. Similar thing with me, like when I've worked for those massive companies and I've been there kind of spitballing ideas and coming up with things. I remember working for one big agency 10 years ago, coming up with an idea, and it got absolutely shot down, to do with an app for your phone that Bluetooths to hearing aids to dull out ambient sound for people with hearing impairment, and just got completely shut down. And now it's $100+ million business with another, you know, and I didn't have the guts to go with my instincts then. And it was the same with maybe how I treated people. But over that time and that journey, going to a place where understanding that creativity can have a space to breathe if it's got the right people supporting it and right people around you, makes all the difference.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I think, you know, you've got to be brave. I mean, you've got to have the courage of your convictions, because, you know, if you're as good as you believe you are, then you'll always find another job. All right. This isn't about a job. This is about building a legacy. This is about creating something really powerful that people can believe in, and that actually, you know, they care about, that they give a shit about. So, I mean, you know, I'm the first one to tell you that advertising isn't rocket science or open heart surgery, you know, but we have a real responsibility to society and to culture, and we really have a lot of power to change the world, you know, and it shouldn't be hashtag diversity. We should be taking action to change the colours and the makeup of our, you know, boardrooms. There aren't enough women in them, but there certainly aren't enough people of colour, and there's certainly not enough people who are, you know, comfortable with their sexuality and talking about it. And definitely disabled people don't even get, you know, they get left at the you know, the door where they can't get in, you know, they're on the street basically. So there's a lot of work to be done. But innovation, I think, will drive that, and I really truly believe that. I really do.
So you're, with that innovation and that kind of push for change and doing good, actually using your influence for really good purposes. The reactions that people have to mavericks, to the, you know, the people who do shake up that snow globe, it doesn't tend to be particularly positive. Now, you've both turned it into something that is a legacy worth following, that other women are going to want to follow and replicate and look up to you both. What would you say to all of those mavericks and mavens out there who have something inside, who have a spark, who are so excited to do something? What would you do to, or say to, encourage them? What can you suggest to give them that kind of, that encouragement to be a maverick?
I think, I mean, one of the things, and I've always said it, you know, and it was one thing that, you know, when I made the leap and said, this is what I'm going to do, is that what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst case scenario? And I remember when I studied kids, the worst case scenario was like, wouldn't have any money, and I had enough friends with sofas that I could sleep on sofas. And it's that, literally, that go basically taking us out and going, you've got one life, and what is literally the worst that can happen, and not being aware of, I think that's what's come with age, is being aware of the voices around me. And actually, it's often the people closest to you who are the most critical and the most negative. And the older you get, the more you realize that it's their insecurities. It's their, people don't naturally like change. We like living in comfort zones with everything all, you know, neat and tidy, which is why the majority of society will quite happily sit in a comfort zone all their lives, because you don't like that change. So if you challenge that change, you're going to change that social structure around you, or the family dynamic, or you might be growing. then that threatens the people around you, and it's often the closest people to you that feel threatened. So they will put you down, they will try to stop you, they will. And in your 20s you take it and you go, oh, I shouldn't be doing it, or you'll take it personally. Now I notice it all the time, and I immediately have a kind of invisible shield, as I call it, where I'm like, it's their problem, it's on them, this is their insecurities, this is. And I think that's one thing of actually, the quicker you can kind of go, well, are they criticizing it for because actually it's a shit idea, or are they criticizing it because you're threatening them, you're threatening their existence, you're threatening your friendship because you're growing and they're in a different way. That's sort of, it's that can often, the judgment around of other people around you will often stop people doing things. So don't give it, I always just say, stop worrying about what other people think. If every bone in your body thinks it's a good idea, then you've got to go for it. And actually your true friends will stick with you. You know, I've learned that. Like literally, I've been shedding friends for years, especially the last year I've shedded even more. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you do that, you know, you have to have a clear out every now and again.
Exactly.
Exactly, this is a bit of a one-way street, hey, you know, like I'm giving, and you're taking, and there's not like a lot else going on. But I think, yeah, I mean, I agree with what Emma said, but I also, if I could add something, I think, you know, find your passion, and, you know, don't be afraid to talk about it, you know, don't be afraid to have an opinion, don't be afraid to change your opinion either, you know, like learn. I mean, the commonality I think between the three of us is that we're very curious about the world, and we're extremely curious about what's going on. I think
curious is a key word in this.
Curiosity is absolutely key to everything, because I mean, having a keen sense of wanting to understand how things work, and wanting to know, you know, what's going on underneath the bonnet here or whatever, you know, it's so important to actually feed your ideas, you know, and to feed innovation, and feed the perspective that you need to develop to be able to offer originality, if that makes sense. You know, I mean, I think looking at the world through different lenses is a fundamental to actually, you know, improving and making things better. I mean, I hate it when I, you know, talk to people and they say, like, you know, I'll show you the deck when it's ready. And I'm like, well, I don't want to see it when it's ready. I want to see it now, so that we can work on the narrative or whatever it might be. You know, you can't kind of, if you hold things like this, you are going to fail. Let me tell you. And that's a lesson that I have learned. It's a very important to get your homework marked by other people. Get them to look at it. You know, take the criticism. It's good.
People you don't like. That's, you know what I mean. It's like, it's very easy to sit in a little echo chamber comfort zone of kind of the strokers. It's, you've got to be really, you know. I love awkward conversations and awkward places, and putting myself in, you know, places where I'm like, I don't really want to go there, and I don't particularly like them, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna go, because you don't know who you're going to meet, you don't know what you're going to talk about, and actually they might make you slightly defensive to start with, but it's listening. I think people are really bad at listening.
I think that's key to it as well. I mean, the first lesson of you know, sales that I was taught was to listen to what the customer is saying to you. And I found that's absolutely the golden rule. Everyone's the bloody customer. Everybody is a potential partner. Everybody is a potential opportunity. And unless you kind of embrace that wholeheartedly, and I absolutely know that the three of us do that day in, day out. You know, I think that's probably one of the reasons why we've all been so successful, because we do that, you know, and we're not afraid to. I mean, if someone asks me a question and I can't answer it, then I say so. I actually don't know how to answer that question. You know, what are you thinking there? You know, I'm intrigued by that. So it's so important to being successful is to having that openness, and to say, like when I first started running Steak, I hadn't got a clue what an algorithm was, right? I genuinely didn't. It was something to do with slide rules at school or something, or like it was cosine on those Texas home instruments calculators that I had when I was doing my O levels, and we didn't, you know, it was that sort of stuff. I mean, and you know what I did? I just went into Google and I said, can someone please explain to me how this algorithm works? Because you are screwing up my business every time you put a new release out. Yeah, and they sat me down and they explained the whole thing to me, and I went out and think, right, we're going to conquer this algorithm. Come on, guys. And that's what we did. So what I'm saying to you is that you just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that you can't learn about it, and it doesn't mean that you can't find solutions. Just get your head wrapped around it, and then the ideas will come. And I think after quite often, not having requisite and first class maths honours, whatever, from Cambridge actually helps you enormously in digital in particular.
Yeah, and so I get a bit frustrated with the word diversity being thrown around, with people not really understanding what it means. So, we're talking about, what part of diversity are we talking about here? People tend to use it as a bit of a catch-all right now, right? And ultimately, whether it is, and they really do, and what you really want in an environment, and I guess the best, most innovative environments are those melting pots of the most diverse people. And we're talking everything: neurodiversity, race, gender, able-bodied, disabled, mentally, any question here, anyone who's got sensory impairment of any kind, their understanding, someone with a hearing impairment, their understanding of visuals is amplified, and I think we really
do that all the time.
Yeah.
I want to share something with you because I do think this is important, what you're talking about here. One of the really interesting things about the explosion in the creator economy, and particularly with Gen Z and younger millennials, is that they really they are colorblind to a large extent, and they've done so much of their relationship building online and through the social platforms. We've been having incredible success with these creator collectives that we run, where we basically take brands into these creator collectives, which are extremely diverse. They are, diverse in terms of all manner of backgrounds and color. There's lots and lots of disabled influencers and creators, by the way. Check them out. They are fascinating people, and they really have got an incredible perspective on the world, which I really commend to you. But that has been incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And some of the things that you come out with. So innovation, it's a bit of a dirty word for a lot of people. I've heard people saying, oh, they're saying innovation again. It's I'm wary of people who talk about innovation all the time. And again, I suppose innovation's become a bit of a catch-all for a lot of businesses. And that there isn't a big business right now that hasn't got a new innovation and growth arm, popping up, or a new consultancy popping up that does innovation. So, it's become this kind of like this status label now, hasn't it, to have an innovation? What do you guys think that true innovation is? Where does it come from? Do you think it comes from the people, or is it the questions? What was it for you guys like?
For me, it's like we've grown massively over the last 4 or 5 years, and opening up our education side, and again the educators and having that real diverse, and we've got some disabled, we call them community kittens, we've got some trans community kittens. We've just, from opening it up on the online side of that, you then have the ideas for a lot of the stuff we have launched in the last few years and everything. And I think it's like saying that, it is a buzzword, diversity, innovation, buzzword. Like, you can tick the boxes, but it's a lot of people tick the diversity box thinking they've got more women on a board, that's fine, or more women on a panel. It's kind of, but they're all white. You've got 4 white guys and 2 white women who are like middle class, or they went to boarding school or went to private school. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't, that's like, you think you're being diverse, or a token black person on there as well who might also be private school educated. I've been on some panels like that and gone, this is bollocks. This is not, you know what I mean? This is not cognitively diverse. It's not awkward. It's not different conversations. And to me, innovation is like evolution. It kind of, you look at, the way we reproduce, what I mean? We have sex with someone, we produce babies, it's some of me, it's some of my husband, it's that. And me and my hubby are complete different ends of the spectrum, totally different people. And you don't know, we've got 3 kids, totally different. They both came from me and my husband. They could not be more different. these 3 children, all 5 years apart. And that, to me, the innovation comes from those awkward conversations from totally different views and different standpoints. And that's, so if a company has an innovation branch at room team and they're all white or they're all, you know, and they all sit there discussing ideas, you're just in an echo chamber that isn't going to innovate. It might come up with an idea that extends your current idea, but is it really innovating? Like, the best innovations come from colliding. You know, we've, you know, KK's exploded because we've collided the offline and the online in 2 completely different worlds. And the education and what went from women and empowering women and vetted parties is now, you know, doing talks and having the disabled element, and we're doing work with Handy, which is, you know, the world's first sort of sex toys to do for disabled people. It's kind of, it's a real, it just covers everything to do with sex now, and sexuality and all genders that 15 years ago wasn't there. We didn't have the online stuff. So, and that's come from actually me putting myself in really awkward positions where I actually have had to do a lot of internal talks, because, you know, I went to a boarding school for 10 years. It was all white people. It was, you know what I mean? I was fortunate to have the Middle Eastern background at home, because all my friends were every nationality possible and every yeah, literally, you know, every race, every religion, every culture. And so I see humans, and I think I'm a rarity for a 43-year-old because we moved every 2 years, different people, different cultures, different religions all the time, that I've never seen. And I've got my social spectrum family wise, mum's very working class, came from working class, dad went to Eton. It's an entire spectrum of the social spectrum that I've grown up with. So I'm in a pot. That's how. So but so I've always felt actually like a bit of an outsider, where you don't feel like you belong in anything, and it's got an outsider's mindset. And again, that's been the last few years that I've realized it's a thing, and that actually there's nothing wrong with me. And actually a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business people and successful ones would be considered outsiders. That's why a lot of immigrants are the ones who actually are the top CEOs and make, you know, of the big companies in America, because they look in with an outsider's mindset and aren't caught in these little echo chambers that you see around you in personally in a community. Like, we're in a village, so I can see it in the school mums, you know, you see it in the workplace, in teams, you see it all the time, because that's all they've known. So I think it's important to actually take yourself out sometimes with an outsider's mindset and go, what am I missing? Where do I want to feel awkward? Who's going to make me feel awkward? What conversation is going to make me feel awkward? And have them every day.
Okay, so you're basically, so the awkward conversation for me with my kids, even with my eldest, and he's at uni now, it was all, my awkward conversation was I couldn't go to the playground and talk to their mums about what colour their poo was or what they'd had for supper the night before. And that would be my awkward conversation. My safe zone was going to work. So I need to start going to the playground with my youngest and having those conversations and getting out of my comfort zone. But no, like, everything that you've done with Killing Kittens has transformed the market. You know, you've been up there, one of the people trailblazing and leading and forcing change. And you have forced change, like the labels are gone, the pigeonholing is going. You know, it's still there. We still have the issues that we have, but we are moving in the right direction. Nowhere near as fast as we want, but it is going that way. Is there anything else that you think well, what have you got left to do? What have you got left to do?
Loads. I know, I mean, so the global side to me is important. It's that, to me, I'm really passionate about grassroots level, and that's not just sexuality, that's also was where we found it, whether that's why we say bedrooms to boardroom, is the confidence level, where the issue is with girls and women, is confidence. It's not, you can try now and get more 30-40-year-olds into board positions and things, but the messaging and that bias messaging they've had since they were little at grassroots is in them. It's very hard to change that when it's been there for, you know, for so long. To me, it's really important to hit them. You know, I've got a 2-year-old girl and a 4-year-old girl, which has made me even more passionate about doing it, because I can hear myself sometimes saying things that I wouldn't say to my son. It's there. You have to really force yourself to change the language, to change so that actually they go, because there's a real issue. Something I study, so you know, by the time girls are 7, they already think they can't do what boys do. So where's that happening? How is 7-year-olds between 0 and 7, how is it happening that they're suddenly thinking they're not as good as boys? And that's to me,
that's a massive
so
discussion.
that's very much, and the sex education side of things, you know, as well, as a shit show in school. So that's a big
non-existent.
Yeah.
And Mary, how do you feel about this kind of pushing the button and kind of, does everyone mind if we go over 5 minutes? Is that okay? Because we've still got a couple of questions after this, but is that okay with everyone? Okay.
It's okay, Steph, for me as well, for everybody.
So Mary, how do you feel about this? Like, is innovation still the elephant in the room? And how are you going to do things with Takumi to really like change, make good change, positive change, tech for good, influencer power for good? We do
it. I mean, we do it, and I know, and that's just the facts. The numbers don't lie. You know, we're currently 71% female, 31% BIPOC, and we have 10% LGBTQ plus in our team. We aim to be 80-20 by the end of the year. So yeah, we're just working really hard at it, really. And one of the things that I want to say is that, you know, back in the day, we used to say when innovation started to become a department in corporate cultures, we would say that the innovation department was there to stop innovation, because that was what it felt like when you went to talk to them. I think that has changed. I really, really do, because I think that so many large corporations have witnessed, you know, like these outliers coming along, and then suddenly they've become the biggest companies in the world through innovation, through disruption. And I mean, Google's a perfect example. We can talk about all of the others. You know, what Emma's doing is absolutely, you know, disrupting everything was what she did, because she came out and said it's like, you know, she keeps on doing it, which is a really, really important. I think the thing is that
really exhausting.
It's very but from my point of view, and what I'm doing with Takumi, first of all, I absolutely love what I'm doing, because I'm working at this incredible, you know, point where technology and human creativity intersect, which is amazing. And I think professionalizing the creator economy is a wonderful mission to have, and that's basically what we're doing. And I love it. You know, I absolutely love the fact that we've got this democratized world where, you know, you've got a film studio in your hand. You know, it's not just a mobile phone. And I think that these kids and and not even just kids, you know, everybody who bothers to actually get into it and to be creative and to express themselves is, you know, and bringing, you know, making people laugh, entertaining people, you know, connecting with people at a deep emotional level. I mean, you know, the neuroscience backs this up, you know. So for me, this is incredibly hopeful in a time where we look around, we see an awful lot of doom and gloom and horribleness. I mean, you know, I think this is the first panel where I haven't heard the word COVID pandemic mentioned.
Oh no, you've done it.
You did it.
You know,
unprecedented time. That one, no.
But the point is, you know, we're you know, the fact is we've got to get on with it now, right? We can't just sit there and like go, oh no, it's all terrible. I think that being excited by what's happening with the world and seeing opportunity and seeing the creative energy that is out there is actually very fulfilling, and it really inspires me. But I completely, you know, am aligned with the fact that you often have to have really uncomfortable conversations with people to really challenge yourself. And sometimes they can be very upsetting as well. And, you know, I think women in particular don't like to be confrontational. They're not, you know, they don't want to come across as being aggressive. I think what you were talking about earlier on about how, you know, like that kind of being unpopular thing, you know, like we've got to drum that out of
being a good
society. Girl. You know, like, I don't want to encourage my grandchildren. I've got granddaughters, right? I've got 2 sons and 3 granddaughters. And I want my granddaughters to be themselves, and for everyone around them to be cool with that. You know, not telling them to stop, don't do that, no, nice girls don't do that. You know, I mean, that sort of stuff has, you know, I was really lucky. I come from an Irish background, and we were immigrants, and my grandparents told me from the moment I was born that you will do whatever you want to do in life and you will be brilliant. And that's exactly what I have done. So thanks, man.
Yeah.
I love that. Now I'm gonna throw before the questions we're gonna do, I'm gonna throw one more thing in here, and because it's really important at the moment, and there's a really big push now. ADHD diagnosis, and I'm seeing a lot more people in the entrepreneurial space, creative spaces, business, like high level business spaces, and people who are seen as challenging the status quo. And there's been a big surge of women particularly women, because the way that the diagnosis tends to be missed is it's considered a comorbidity or a misdiagnosis. It's OCD, it's BDD, it's anxiety, it's depression, it's anger management, etc. And actually what it turns out to be is, the whole time it was ADHD. Now, I don't know about how you got to your kind of discovery or diagnosis, Emma, but mine was reading an article in the Times where this guy talks about his career, shaking things up, challenging people, pissing a lot of people off, getting bored very easily and moving from challenge to challenge to challenge. And I read it and it was like, oh my God, this is a mirror of my life. Right? There we go. And I went, and I've been told I've got OCD. I don't depression. No, I definitely don't have depression. And and all these things. And I went for my diagnosis, and I was told, and it wasn't a light bulb moment. It was as if someone turned on a lighthouse. And that was the moment I found my peace with myself, and I really got to the point of, okay, that's why I've done all these things in my career, and now I'm here. And it gave me the confidence to really push my latest businesses and have the confidence to make it happen. Now, I've got a sneaky suspicion, so I'm involved in a documentary about this that's coming out, and we need to chat about that anyway. But there's so much happening now. Do you think that this kind of mental health awareness space has taken us to a place where actually we are more confident in calling out what our diagnoses may be, or what in the past may have been a hindrance? I completely agree with you. ADHD for me is a superpower, 100%, because of the things that it benefits you. It's almost like we're Superman, but we're living on kryptonite sometimes, on Krypton. So that's kind of how it feels. But do you feel that it's something that maybe there are lots of women, especially in the entrepreneurial, innovation, creative space, who feel frustrated, they've maybe had a misdiagnosis or a diagnosis of some kind, and it doesn't quite fit right? Do you think it's something they should explore? And how did you feel?
Yeah. I think, do you know who it was? I was actually being interviewed by a Daily Mail journalist, and she went, have you ever been tested for ADHD? And I went, what are you talking about? And she went, the speed at which you're talking and jumping from topic. She went, honestly. And I was like, and then I looked into it, and I had never really thought about it before. And I thought, sorry, I'll just go and done. And they went, yeah, you're on the literally 92% out of 100 was you're at the top. And and then the more I looked into it, I thought, it explains that. And to me, it wasn't, nothing changed. It just stopped me beating myself up when I'd have a day when nothing got done, or I was procrastinating and I couldn't be asked to do anything. And then, because I've always been at university, so I did my dissertation, I think, in like overnight. Wrote it up, left it till the night before. It was, and I've always been like that, the crammer, the kind of real short spurts, and the standing joke in the office of like, if you want Emma, just put your hands on her shoulder and make her sit down and listen to you for like, and I'd always said I've got 15 minutes before my brain goes into, that's my meetings, is like 15 minutes. So this is like, the fact that we're going quite quick into different topics means I'm here. But and also I'm now, I could never listen to podcasts. It really frustrated me because everyone was listening to podcasts, and I'd be like, it would take me 4 attempts to listen to a 40-minute podcast, because I'd be like 10 minutes now I'm bored, and my brain. So now I have it on a 1.8 speed when I listen to a podcast. And if my WhatsApp voice notes is on 1.8 speed. And my husband the other day heard one and went, what the fuck? What is that? And I went, it's making perfect sense to me. And I'm literally, I can hear it perfectly, and I'm focused. And so you kind of, it's weird. It's kind of, it's sort of, it is what it is. It doesn't, change anything. It just sort of explains a lot, and it's made me, well, go, this is, and also work a bit better knowing how I work, rather than, hang on a minute, I'm just sort of all over the place, to go, well, actually, this is how my brain works. So it's sort of, just get more organized.
You created your work environment as an entrepreneur. Now, Mary, how do you feel? Now, we've worked in big companies, WPPs, etc. How do you feel those companies are set up versus maybe how Takumi is set up for people who are diverse, neurodiverse? Because this is something that's really exploding right now, the awareness.
I mean, I genuinely do actually think that these companies are, the OBCOs as we call them, are trying very hard to to shift the culture. I do genuinely think that. I really believe that, and I'm not just saying it. I think that there are new leadership is in place and what have you, and I think that that's happening. But I think it's very difficult for them because it's corporate, right? And the wheels turn very slowly. And you can have a champion of diversity and put them on the board and what have you, but at the end of the day, corporations have to make profits. They have baked in hardwired copper wire in most instances. They've got behaviors and cultures that really do take a long time to change. So I think it is difficult, and I just think we have to acknowledge that. But it doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't congratulate them and embrace them when they're trying to make things happen. Of course, if you're running your own organization or you're leading your own business, if you care passionately about the things that I know all three of us do, then you make those changes a reality. And that's just what we do. We just do that. We just do it. We don't kind of spend hours and hours debating it, because we don't have to. We can just make it happen. And I think there's so much talent out there that's looking for opportunity, and we get approached all the time. And I think culturally, this is really important for us to attract the very best talent. And again, to what Emma was saying, you've got to listen to these different people. We survey our people all the time anonymously, so they can share with us things that they're not happy about, or they think is hypocritical, or whatever it might be. So I'm not afraid to get the negative feedback. What I wish more and more about is that people were, they felt confident enough to not worry about upsetting me. You know what I mean? I don't care if you upset me. Really, genuinely, I don't. I want to just hear what you got to say. So that sort of stuff is really, quite important. And empowering people from, not the norm, like boarding school, Eton, Oxbridge, whatever background, to actually feel comfortable and confident about saying, well, I actually don't agree with you. I kind of think maybe we should look at it like this. And ensuring you've got that kind of culture is really, really important. And that's what Takumi does. And that's what we will continue to do as we grow. And this year we've tripled in size, so far. And I mean, we're just in H2 now. So I'm very excited about the rest of the year. It's really, really happening for us. And I'm very grateful, to the God of timing, that yet again, they've thrown me a bone, and I'm definitely going to make sure this one is going to be supercharged and growing. But growth through creativity is absolutely essential to our business model, and delivering excellent service and added value, and making the experience really wonderful for everybody. So we have a lot of very, very committed people, and I absolutely love what I'm doing. It's fantastic, and I feel very blessed at the ripe old age of 57 to be still in the game, as they say.
You'll always be in the game, Mary.
Cracking on.
But very quickly, I'm going to go through some of the notes. Ranella, I've worked with you, my love. You are not aggressive.
No, so I've been told aggressive all my life, so you just own it.
Yeah, exactly. So Ranella says, I'm going to go backwards. Ranella says that she's had feedback that she's been aggressive due to the fact that she likes asking tough questions or getting straight to the point. Guys, do you have any advice for Ranella on that one?
I would say that, keep doing it. But if you've got a boss, if it's a man a lot of the time like that, or a lot of the time it's an older woman, actually women are as bad, sometimes worse, female bosses than the men are. If you're not getting anywhere and you've then tried to have a conversation and said, look, I'm trying to you know, question, and this is how I'm feeling, if it's still, then question whether actually that's the right place to be working. You know, are you being allowed to be yourself? Are you being allowed to be curious? Because actually, it's like being in any relationship. I always say, you know, what have you achieved when in a personal relationship? I always say to friends, like, isn't it amazing? And then I'm like, well, what have you achieved as a person whilst being in that relationship? Have you grown? Have you grown as an individual? If you've just sat there and trodden water to keep the peace, then that person isn't the right person for you. And the same way, it's not the right company for you if you don't feel like you're growing and being allowed to grow. And that's hard to then jump ship, but you know, it's, you can be in that shit relationship, or you can do something about it.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so next one, Lisa. So you've said here, Gen Z are the most diverse generation. They see humans. Oh, that's a wonderful point. Do you think that, guys, that maybe before, particularly in kind of digital and tech spaces, we didn't see human beings, we just saw numbers? And now, like the old, do you remember the old 4 Ps, right? It could have shifted more. It's more about purpose now. It's more about personalization. It's, you know, everything has shifted. So do you think we see humans more?
I think we should. We absolutely should see humans more. And I think that, you know, the brohood of impressions and you know, just writing code and tech has been, I mean, I think we're smashing it up, and I encourage all women to understand how to code if they can. And if it's Lisa Goodchild who made that comment, I mean, she is one of the most incredible people I know. She empowers, and she, through her work with DigiLearning and her agency DigiWoo, you know, she's absolutely building out this diversity agenda, and you know, and empowering young people to really understand how digital works. And the Gen Z will be the leaders of the future. I mean, you know, your kids, Emma, you know, they're the leaders of the future. My grandchildren are the leaders of the future, and I genuinely think that there is real change happening with this generation. And because women like us are their mothers and their fathers, understand that, you know, daughters need to be given as much opportunity as sons. So I think there is something changing here, and I really do feel much more optimistic about the future because of these changes that are taking place. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, Hugo, what I was going to ask, do you want to pick the last question in the chat, because I know that we're running out of time and we have run over because it's been so much fun. So Hugo, up to you. You pick the last question. Or have you got a question?
Yeah. What's your advice for men?
Mine's listen. That's why I said, when, you know, when it kicked off at the beginning of this year, you know, the Sarah Everards, and you know, there was a lot of this kind of, you know, a lot of kind of defensiveness. Not all men, where it's like, no, but that's not, it was just to be listened to. For being, I had guy friends saying to me, well, what, and how does it feel? And I would talk them through situations I've been in, and you know, and in the workplace, or you know, in the personal space, in the workspace, and I've made them, or I've, you know, said, I reminded them of things they've said where I've been out with them, and socially they've said something about a girl, and I've gone, can you see that that's not cool? So to me it became that's not cool. And I just said to men, it's like, you've got to pull up the men around you and go, that's not cool. Whether that's in a personal space, in a bar or whatever, or whether it's in that workspace, whether it's around a board table and there's a girl trying to put her point across and gets cut in by some stale pale male that comes flying over the top to nick the idea and shut her down. You go, hang on a minute, she was talking, that's not cool. It's actually, we need you as allies. It's not an us versus them. It's like, I love men, and it shouldn't be, it's not man hating. It's like, we need to work together, but to win this and to make things better, we need men by our sides, basically as warriors around us going, that's not cool. So yeah, that's my advice.
100%, I agree. That's the way it should be, exactly. Okay, great. Steph, final words?
Well, I was about to say, anything you want to add to finish up, Mary, Emma? It's been such a pleasure. I love you both. And obviously, Emma, I met you nearly 8 years ago. And Mary, we've known each other forever. But it's been, I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Oh, it's
everybody.
been great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
It's been
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Bye.
us.
Thank you all. The video will go on YouTube soon. So please follow the Innovation Cafe. And Steph, many thanks for being such a great host. Emma and Mary as well. This was probably the best session ever. Okay. Enjoy the rest
Bye.
of the evening. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Bye.